How many people have accepted?
26.
Crikey. Okay. So,
Yeah.
well, anyway, let's crack on. I mean, some of those people might come to the 5-amper one tomorrow, which is probably, there's a fair bit. There might be a degree of commonality there. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, and we've got about 30 or something accepted for 5 amperes. So it could be a question of them.
Well, they're fundamentally different, aren't they, Paul? Otherwise, we're going to get a lecture on that.
Yes,
we will. Yes.
That'll be
arriving.
Yeah, that'll be the first hour gone.
Steve will back me up, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get my lecture afterwards.
Okay, well, let's get started anyway. I think most of us here understand where we're coming from, but for those who don't, this is to update, upgrade, make in line with the Building Safety and Fire Safety Acts. Work we did a couple of years ago, identifying ways of mitigating risk within 12 fire critical assets. We drilled down very deeply, answering 5 questions. This was not a static document, and there were a lot of upgrades from comments and emails in and conversations over the last couple of years. But we decided it was a good idea to actually sit down and sort of re-go through the process. We're changing that slightly, which George will explain to you now.
Sure. Okay. Bear with me 1 minute. Yeah. So, I'm just going to switch off the one on fire doors, just so that we've got that.
Yeah.
Bear with me a second.
Sorry, I didn't give you long enough, did I?
No, it's last minute change from my point of view. Right. So, okay. So this will only take a couple of minutes, but for people that haven't been involved, I wanted to just explain what BIM4Housing is about. We've got 6 working groups that address the different sort of stakeholder groups within the industry, and they meet once every 2 months. So we're running a dozen of those a year. And then what we've then got is the purpose of those is to identify what is it that could be improved in each of those processes if you have better information. So that's really what we call BIM, better information management. And that spawned different work streams who look at data, and we've produced standardized information requirements, classifications, reusable data libraries. One of the main thing that we're covering today are the 12 fire safety critical asset types. We've also got work going on carbon and also the digital record. So just to put some sort of context behind it, one of the challenges that we have is that different people need different information for different purposes. And if you ask somebody, what information do you need to know about a smoke damper? You'll get a different answer depending on the context in which that's being asked. And it might well be that some of that information could be fixed. So in other words, a product data sheet or something like that. And some of it might be variable. So the data changes. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to identify what the difference is between the two. Ideally, all of it should be machine readable, but we've got a lot to do. So actually being able to get the active data, the stuff that changes, to be machine readable is a good step forward. What we also want to do is look at these in the context of safety case reports, and to be able to identify what impacts on the safety case report or a fire risk assessment if the status of a smoke damper changes. And when it changes, then potentially the risk assessment should be rerun. And finally, we need to be able to tie back to an individual asset because one of the things that's become clear is that a lot of the tools and processes that are currently being used, they're actually creating a unique record of the inspection, but not of it. That may not be tied back to that individual asset. So for that smoke damper may be checked, twice a year or something like that over a period of 5 years or 10 years. But what we need to do is make sure that there's a record against that, irrespective of who's done that inspection. And one of the challenges there is to have it so that we've got a unique ID in a spatial model that you can then tie back to the data. So the information that we're saying is important, and it might be a document, or the products, the information, or indeed locating it in the context of where that particular asset is. And if we do that, then there's a range of different software applications that inspectors are using, like Plan Radar, Risk-Base, Keystone, and what they're all doing is recording maybe the status of something and maybe the fact work's been carried out to it. But if we can identify it back to an individual unique asset, then we've got a chance of tracking things and producing the golden thread. This is just a brief thing saying why we need machine readable product data for certain things. So the majority of things on that data sheet are probably quite reasonable to be able to manually read. It might be adequate. But things like fire rating, you probably want to have as machine readable information because you want to identify which doors are 30-minute or 60-minute. And here we've got a different manufacturer's data sheet, and you'll see that the way fire rating itself is described is different. That's the way it's described in that one. This is the way it's described in this, and this is the way it's described in another data sheet. So ideally, we want, if we decide that fire rating is an important property of a door set, then we want it to be machine readable, we think. So we've been carrying out work over the last 2 or 3 years with Hacked and producing standardized data libraries, which could then be used to populate any software application. So it means that it can be kept up to date. So if we've got standardization in terms of that, it means that we can keep things current. So the safety cases, for example, or fire risk assessments are current. And in doing that, we created a reusable library, which is available to you, of all the asset types, the way the different FM systems within social landlords are calling things. And in some cases, they call things, they've got different names for them. So in this one here, we've got an AOV or an opening vent or a smoke vent. But by classifying them all back to a single category, in this case uniclass, you've got a way of normalizing that so that everybody's comparing apples with apples. And in the library, we've got 240 standard asset types, of which 71 were fire related and 152 were safety related. Again, if anybody's interested in that, then speak to me afterwards. The other thing is that you might hear of BIM data and COBie data. Well, the key thing about COBie data is that the high level COBie data is common to any asset type, irrespective of whether it's a smoke damper, a pump, or a door. So there's nothing that makes it special. So it's key to get this information, but it's common for all manufactured items. The thing that makes a difference is if a smoke vent or a damper, that has additional attribute information. And the question then is, and this is part of what we're doing today, is what key attributes should we include? You might think that other people are doing this, like the BIM world, and the BIM world uses something called IFC, and there's a data dictionary for that. But a lot of that information is really for design rather than for procurement or asset management. And therefore, there's a range of different classification systems and attributes that are for different purposes. ETIM, for example, is what wholesalers use to be able to select and supply things. You might not have heard of that, but we're able to incorporate that as well. So the attributes, for example, for this AOV, these are the BIM attributes. So we've got the common things like width, height, and depth. We've also got fire rating down here, but there are certain parameters here that you may decide that could be just in a data sheet. And therefore, we don't need to collect this as machine readable information. And that's really the purpose of these workshops. If we can get that data in a machine readable form, then we can provide to installation contractors or manufacturers these type of data templates to fill in. So they don't have to put the information into the BIM models. In fact, ideally, they shouldn't be doing that, but they can just feed it into spreadsheets, etc. So to move on from there, about 2 years ago, I was asked to lead the Golden Thread Initiative Asset and Survey Information Group, which was one of 10 working groups that was set up to be able to advise the government. L&Q set this up to advise the government on what information was needed. And when I asked people like Paul White and Stephen, what information do we need to know about a smoke damper? They'll say, it depends. It depends on where it's going, what wall it's going into, etc. So there's a lot of complexity there. And we're sort of expecting the government to tell us what to do, and they're not going to. It's got to be up to us to interpret that information. So that's why we've tried to concentrate on really a maximum of 250 asset types so that we can track them through. And all of that work led to the creation of what we're going to go through today. So we've done this exercise for all of those 12 asset types. One of the things that we now realize that we probably need to add on to this is lifts, from a conversation we had yesterday. And by doing this, what we want to then do is to be able to say we can split aside the data from the geometry. So the geometry, the CAD systems, the BIM systems are there to really locate where things are, but we can hold the attribute information in databases, which then can provide connections through to any software application, whether it be procurement or commissioning. And that means we can include things like the new BS8644 data very easily, and also retrospectively. So if you want to add that into your analysis of a building, maybe it's coming up to gateway review, then that's the sort of thing that can be done. So I'm just going to go on to this. This is showing you what we're actually going to be covering today. So the publications that we produced about 18 months ago really describe what a damper is in the context of what risks. This was the way the HSE asked us to look at things. So rather than look at things from a point of view of the asset itself, which is what I'm used to doing, what they wanted to do was place it in the context of what risk is it mitigating. So this is the first part we're going to look at. Then what do people do to a smoke damper to stop it from working? We then come on to the key information here, and that is what data do we need to ensure it performs as required. So we've taken those. These are the main things that were identified, and then we move on to the tasks that are going to be needed. And there's an example here out of SFG 20. Finally, or not finally, then the level of competence is needed. And that normally draws quite a conversation. And then the how do we record changes? So broadly, that's what we're going to cover today. But one final thing is that we did this exercise last year for some of the assets, but we've not done it for smoke control yet, or we've not done it for smoke dampers yet. And that is identifying for each of these bits of information, who's responsible for providing it. And you might say, for example, the location should come from the designer and the trade contractor. Yeah, but the client needs to be accountable, etc. So the principal idea of this is to go through each of these. We're not going to do this today, but we can go through each of these and then with a follow-up session and be able to turn this into something usable. Because at the end of the day, we're all volunteers. So if we're asking you to give up your time, we need to make sure that we can give you something as an output at the end. Okay, that's me. Was that helpful?
Okay.
Yes, it was. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, Ian went through that on Monday.
Okay, Jess, do you want
Actually,
to put
you explained it better today.
Oh, thank you. Excellent.
It's more practiced.
It's
Yeah.
getting better as the week goes on.
Yeah.
Ian, it's probably just the fact you were actually listening today.
Okay, so we're gonna start on question 1. If you just scroll slightly, just so that we can get those on. There you go. If you want to take just a minute or so, just have a quick flick down that list of those risks. What risks do smoke control dampers mitigate? Oh, just to say at the top, we record these sessions and we take high point notes of from the video, but also from everything that's in the chat. And we found in these roundtable sessions, it's good to use the chat. If you've got a point to make, put it in the chat. Well, obviously we'll bring it up in discussion as well. But if we get it in the chat, then Gis will actually put that point onto this document during the meeting as we're going along, so we can see what we've got, and so we don't miss anything when we're actually doing the rewrites. Okay, anything anyone can see that is glaringly missing there, or needs expounding or deleting even? Paul, you must have something.
I have to say that looks like a pretty comprehensive list. I'm not sure that the last one is something that they mitigate, because actually they are chucking it directly outside. So I don't think they mitigate a risk to the environment. I think during a fire they probably make it worse.
Actually, yeah,
Should we take it off then?
Yes, I think so. I think that's clearly wrong, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
good one.
I mean, that's the whole point of them, is to get it out of the inside and to the
course it
outside
is.
to protect
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we touched on this before a little bit. Also, risk of system failure. Is the item part of the system? What we're saying is we're talking about the individual item here, not the system, aren't we?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a funny one because we are talking about the individual item, but at the same time, you have to vaguely talk about it in context, don't you? What do you think, George?
I mean, it is as Ian said that we discussed this on Monday, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think what we need to do at the moment is probably concentrate on the individual asset, Ian, and then look at the system as a wider thing. I mean, I absolutely agree with the process of making sure that we've got the systems sorted.
Yeah, I think that is a risk to the system rather than to something that the smoke control damper mitigates in itself, because it could contribute to failure. I think that's the point.
Right, okay. So that's another one to go then.
I think so, yeah.
Just can you find that? And sorry, he's just putting a comment. Can you find that one to delete, Jess? Do you know whereabouts is it?
2/3 of the way down.
2/3 of the way down, Jess.
Yeah.
Up a bit.
Oh yeah, risk of system failure. It's the short one in the middle. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've got anybody else? Sorry,
isn't the comment there added at the bottom? Just the same as the comment we just deleted.
no. This is somebody's just typed that in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's not one of the points. I think that might be a comment that goes after the table.
Cool.
Right. Okay. Take that off, Jess.
Because it is about the individual asset we're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. It's I take your point. It is a comment as opposed to something to be put in. Okay. Anybody else anything on question 1A about risks mitigated by smoke control dampers? Okay, I'll take that as a no, and we'll move down to question 1B. What compromises smoke control dampers' ability to perform as required? So what are the risks to the actual performance of smoke control dampers themselves? Now, this
Right.
we've got quite a lot of answers to. Scroll up just slightly, Jess. Right, so we've got general here. Scroll down so we can just see the headings.
Yeah. So I think I think you've got to be careful here about what's sorry, we've moved.
Yeah, there's I just wanted to see the headings. So we've got the general section, we've got materials, installation. Keep going, Jess. Is that it? Right, so materials, installation, and then the general. Let's go to take it from the top at first. There we go.
Right. So it's not the risk of the wrong supporting construction, because that's the wrong point. So it's the risk of incorrect installation. So you can't have a wrong supporting construction. You just have the supporting construction that is there. So it's the installation of the smoke control damper to the construction or the ductwork.
Right, I see what you mean. It's the smoke control the damper's got to fit in with and
yes,
be flexible enough to be installed in the correct way of basically whatever it's going into.
That's right. Yeah, so you've got to select the right. You've got to select the right one to go in the hole in the wall.
Got it.
And,
could you do me a favour? Could you put that in the chat, Paul?
But just are they not getting at there saying that the wall might not be strong enough to support the weight? Is that not more?
Well, it's
a structural thing.
It still comes down to the same thing, in the fact that the damper has to be installed correctly into the supporting construction. If the supporting construction is wrong, that doesn't really go with the damper, because there's not a lot you can do about that. It shouldn't have been put there in the first place.
But well, there's a risk to the damper, isn't it?
No,
it can happen.
Yeah, but the supporting construction in itself probably isn't wrong.
I think that's not very well worded, possibly, but yes. I think what it's getting at is a correct point, that because what you're trying to do here is signpost people to not get it wrong. Now, we all know you've got to install it correctly, but what people that don't install dampers might not understand is what that means. So these things here, if any of these things that here is wrong, then there's going to be a problem. It will limit the ability. So the wall construction is important, And it's not just how it's installed, it is what is there. So if you try and install it to something that is just not physically strong enough to take the weight, for example, then you might have installed it correctly in terms of its seals and everything else, but the wall's just not strong enough. So I think that point could be better worded,
all right,
but
so
it's still valid.
the supporting instruction or ductwork cannot support the SCD.
So it's a question of rewording it.
Yeah.
How about risk
Okay.
of inadequate supporting structure?
Ian, could you?
Oh,
pop
that's
that
good.
Inadequate
into the
supporting
chat?
structure. Risk of
Yeah,
inadequate supporting structure.
Ian, could you pop that into the chat for me?
I think I've just done it. So have a look
All
at
right,
that.
cheers, brilliant. Thanks, Paul. George, you've been trying to say something.
No, it's okay. I'm agreeing with. I'm
Okay.
agreeing with the point about the wall not being an important context in this, not simply whether you've picked the right damper. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So delete the first two, Jess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the other ones are all about the installation, so they're
Scroll
I don't
down
know
the
whether you just,
widgets.
before you go into those specifically, do you just want to put wrong installation method, including the following? Incorrect installation method, which may include one or more of the following.
Right. What, under the green one?
Now, under the, I'm not quite sure what the wall grouping is, but I think we'll leave that for the moment. But where you've got risk of incorrect vertical seal depth.
Yeah.
Before that, incorrect installation of the fire dam, the
Right,
smart
so
control
that's
damper.
it. Just put incorrect installation.
Of the SCD, but which may include the following.
Which may include the following.
What one or more of the following? One or more of the following.
May include.
Sorry, I'm getting an
I've got a
echo.
huge feedback at the moment. I don't know whose microphone's doing that.
Guess what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm getting a huge feedback. I couldn't hear what you're saying. Okay, yeah, now it's better.
All right. Right, which may include, MAY, include, colon.
One or more of the following. One or more of the following.
One or more of the following, colon.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's, put a colon so we know it's a heading, it's not a bullet point.
And then probably move all the other ones in. Yeah. Oh yeah, I would just indent all the others further, but
well, we can do that afterwards. We don't need to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't quite know exactly where it stops, but then we're down to risk.
Scroll down just so we can see what comes after that. Right, these are the rest of the general ones. We didn't see the bottom ones. Does that apply to all of this? No, it doesn't. Right, so that.
So what's the what's PMC? Sorry.
This PMC competency of the seal installer. No idea at all.
I don't know what PMC means.
I think you're on mute, George, if you're talking.
Yeah, if you don't know, I think we'd take it out, wouldn't we?
Who dreamed it up?
well, wait. It's the point is about competency of the seal installation.
Yes.
right? So maybe
we
need to reword that so it doesn't include PMC rather than taking the whole thing out.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean taking. Yeah.
Oh,
No,
right,
I
sorry,
didn't mean
I thought
take it
you
out.
meant
I just
delete
don't
it.
understand what PMC is.
Right, so that needs rewriting. Just put that in italics in green, and we know we've got to rewrite that.
Right. So the other thing is whether if they're a Part 3 installer, they may not be capable of installing dampers or ducts, because ducts and dampers aren't pipes and cables, and therefore they should be installed following the instructions for the damper or the duct, not pipes and cables. And that's something that happens all the time. So
this is another point that needs to go in.
Well, we would reword that. The risk of the installer's competency being limited to, and I'm assuming that that's 1366 Part 3, but should have knowledge, but should follow the dampers instructions, which would be what was tested in Part 2.
Is this a general point or an installation point?
Well, it's an installation point, and the point is,
I mean, there's a section on installation.
No, that's it.
No, there's selection underneath it on installation.
Yeah, but in that case, it either doesn't go there. But the point is if you install it to Part 3, it's wrong.
Okay, why don't we just make a note of that?
I think PMC is possibly penetration something contractor.
Yeah, I've just Googled it, and there's a range of different things, and project management competency, I think, or something like that. So yeah, it's a competency framework, I think. But yeah, let's not. If you don't know,
we've got to rewrite. We understand we've got to rewrite that. But you got a little bit technical, Paul. So could you pop that technical bit in the chat?
Yeah, I mean,
so we've got it.
So yeah, it's. So yeah, okay. I will put something in for each of those two. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
let's press on.
I think you're going to be doing a lot of typing, Paul.
Probably. I'm trying to listen as well. Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. It's I just don't want to miss it. That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay. So following on from the colon, I think we stop at. Right, just, the one that's risk of incorrect replacement components. Yeah. Put a line space under that, because that's covered by the colon. Yeah. So now we're looking at risk of risk of human intervention on ancillary assets, such as smoke detectors, impacting on asset performance. So we need to look at those ones. Those 6 or 7, including that down to materials. So if we have a look at those, any comments on that?
I guess what we're really saying there is if someone disconnects a fire alarm link or something. It's things like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is it breaks with the system, isn't it? It's
right. Just are you the green ones you're putting in now? Are you taking those directly off the chat?
Yeah, that's from the chat.
Yeah, if that's what Paul's put in, that should be under the section above. That should be under that's it there.
The comment that Collins made there, which is one we picked up on Monday, about AOVs and smoke control dampers and the use of terminology and words.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a big issue that people just use a generic term when they should be using a specific term. And a smoke control damper is very, very specific. And arguably a subset of a generic word like a generic term like AOV. And I don't know how we catch that, because You know, when something becomes widely used badly, then it becomes widely used badly, and it causes confusion, doesn't it?
Right. Anything else on that bottom section to add, amend, delete? Right, just that last. Consider not using AOV. Right, that is not a point for this. That's a comment for the comments. That would be something we put into the appendix. Okay, right. Let's move down to materials.
Yes, I just changed the second one because I'd got the order wrong. So it's in the chat the right way around now.
Right, let's have a look at materials. Right, that just
That's it. Thanks.
great. Okay, materials, and we're moving into installation.
So what does excessive water damage mean?
Water damage that's excessive.
Take it out if you.
What you're saying is that if you've got a building there's a hole in the roof, it might compromise the equipment because it's all got damaged.
Or there's been a fire and it's been sprayed a lot with hoses.
Or a leak.
Well, those are different things, aren't they? And operation under fire, when it might get shot with a hose, is obviously.
No, I think this is in terms of fixing it after. Fixing it after something's happened to it.
Should we take it out?
It just seems like a strange comment, because if your building's fundamentally got some issues, like it's not, you know, how far do we go on this? Every asset is susceptible to the building being trashed by water because no one's fixed the roof or all the windows smashed in or something.
I sort of agree with Ian. What do you think, Stephen?
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
I can remember this. And it was about leaks. Somebody brought out leaks. Does that ring a bell, George?
Yeah, I think that was more about cavity barriers and things, though. So I'm just concerned that we may be drifting here. Maybe pick something up from one of the others in some way.
Okay, so, we'll take that out, Jess. Okay, installation. Scroll down slightly so we can see what. There we go.
The problem on installation is that it wasn't installed right in the first place because it didn't know what they were doing. So the first one on the list should be that, I think.
Paul, have you found that Paul McSolly spreadsheet?
I have. Yeah.
Richard, do you mind if we just show this for a few minutes, because I think it might give us a bit of a stronger steer for some of the other people.
Sure, absolutely.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah.
So just to explain to everybody, Paul, Stephen and Paul McSolly from Mace and the Passive Fire Group, they've been looking at the decision the trees that people take when they're selecting certain types of products. Can you make it a bit bigger?
Yes, I can. So this is basically this is all the things that you should need to consider. Is that better?
I think the critical thing here is that it's the product selection and the many different elements that you need to be aware of when you're actually picking the product. I think that's it, really, isn't it, Paul?
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I think because I'm online, this is a bit slow and it's a very big sheet.
Well, you don't need to
show. Is it available to anybody or to everybody, or is it sort of a work in progress?
I can check, Ian, and if we can, then we'll get it sent round. I'm not sure how far Paul's got with this one, and he's being a bit careful.
But Ian, if you wanted to review it and contribute to it, I'm confident that Paul McSolly would be receptive to that. Don't you think, Paul?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person that might be able to add value to that. I mean, I'm sure other people on the call could add value to it too. But I mean, I think it's probably quite a good. It's quite a good thing out there.
There we go. Right.
To be out there anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's the whole point. It's about to become. It's all public domain essentially. However, we're just not quite right on every single page, because you'll see there's quite a few sheets there, Ian, with different stuff. Anyway, so we've got all the things that go with the classification, which is down to about here. We've got 2 position, 3 position. You've got sizes. You need to look at flow rates. You look at powering, zoning, cause and effects, UKCA or whatever. Then you've got installations in flexible symmetricals, deflection heads, aperture hole 3 or 4 sides. Has it been tested in a 3-sided arrangement? Is the supporting construction compatible with the damper you've selected? Hole sizing, sufficient access both sides. I mean, basically, and then we go into rigid walls, and we have the same list of things. And then floors compatible with various different bits and pieces, VE, HOD, etc. And I mean, if you notice that basically we've got 100 questions depending on where everything fits in.
So
and then, sorry, George.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to put this in context, there's a lot of people on the call that are maybe from asset management or doing safety case. I see Josephine's on there doing safety case reviews. They wouldn't be going down to this level of detail, but what they might do is want this as evidence that the right product has been selected at the right time.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do here, we're not trying to boil the ocean here. What we're really trying to do is have some sort of methodology that can be used, and quite frankly, this is the type of content that could be used by AI to be able to advise people on what products should be considered. So filtering it down. Could you go to the flowchart tab? I don't know which one it is.
We really need to get back to the document.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to show this.
This gives you a rough idea of all the questions you need to be asking and designing in before you actually make a selection. So you're looking at whether you've got to look at integrity, insulation, whether you're looking at multiple zones or whether you're in single compartments, and then you come on to this level about selecting which product. Then you need to look at the fire strategy to see how long it's got to last. Then you've got to look into how you mount it. I hope everybody can see my cursor because I'm spinning that round on the screen.
Okay, Paul, as Richard said, we need to move on. But yeah, if anybody's interested in this, if you put your name in the chat and say that you want to get involved in the process, I mean, basically the 3 elements that we want to pick up on this for each of the asset types. There's a group that's going to be looking at data, another that's going to be looking at process, and the other one I keep forgetting. Richard, is it application?
Application,
yeah, application. So if you're willing to spend an hour or so at another session with other people who are subject matter experts on these areas, then you'd be very welcome. Right, can we go back to the document again? I think we need to get onto the information bit.
Yeah, well, let's just finish one question, can we?
Have we not done that?
No.
So sorry, just to make a quick point, there's 2 things. This will be ideally going ahead. The issue that I'm sure people on the call will probably have is what have I got now? And am I going to get this information? And the simple answer to that is probably no. And that's where you need to be a bit careful. But hopefully going forward, then you will have all this information.
But the reason I brought that up was this is available to you. What Jess is showing you here now, you can see this now. A lot of the thinking that's gone into this was then been a part of what Paul's just been showing you going forward.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a partway step. Okay. Should we go on to the information now? Over to you, Richard.
Okay, we won't finish that question.
We've finished it, Richard.
We haven't, George. We didn't finish that section. That was the one that was on the screen.
Okay, let's go back. Let's
anyway,
go back
we'll carry on with George's information.
No, let's go on with it. Carry on. Go back to it. I don't want to be.
Right. Just scroll slightly down. That right. Okay, so this is the last bit. Has anybody got anything they disagree with or want to add on?
I think there's a few things that might apply to fire dampers which don't necessarily apply to smoke dampers, or they might be slightly different. If I haven't seen this before, if you want to send it to me, I'll spend a little bit of time editing it and sending it back if that would suit.
That would be very helpful if you would do that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's move down to question 2. Right, as I said, we are taking a slightly different approach, and primarily on question 2, which is information based. George, do you want to?
I think we've covered that.
I think you pretty much.
Can I ask a question? Base material, does it matter what it's made out of? Because if it's passed the test, it's passed the test.
Right.
So do you care what it's made of?
I guess it depends the environment it's being installed in, doesn't it?
But then that's the previous bit about installation and selection.
Well, no, this is from an asset management point of view. You might want to know whether it's galvanized steel or whatever, wouldn't you?
Yeah. This was from George's presentation about this is almost like the Kobe data, which is if you needed to replace something, you would probably want to know what material it was made out of.
Well, wouldn't you just want to know what the specification was?
Where would you get that from?
Well, knowing that it's made out of galvanized steel as opposed to some other material isn't going to tell you anything about whether the specification, whether it's suitable, fit for purpose, is it?
Yeah, the specification.
If you're looking at replacement.
Yeah, the specification would be ideally also provided, but what we've discovered already is that the specification information is often very difficult to get hold of. So this is just standard asset management information.
So yeah, this is your sort of Kobe data, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably want to know it from, you might not want to know it, Ian, from a carbon perspective, for example.
Okay, anything glaringly missing on that? Scroll down a bit more, Jez.
So if you've got the what has been installed by whom and when, doesn't that actually tell you the answer you want to know?
It should do.
Because that's the only thing you want to know, actually, isn't it?
Well, you want to know where it is.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, where it is, but. And the type movement of structure and surface. What is type telling us in this section?
Are there different types of smoke damper?
A smoke control damper.
Yeah. Or is there only one type?
Well, there's probably 2 really: wall mounting and duct mounting, but
the bullet points. What I don't understand how the bullet points relate to the type. I don't know if I'm being. If I'm being, I'm
Is it,
just
well,
reading
I
that.
suppose
I don't understand what it means.
The last one is, does it need servicing and maintenance? I suppose.
What's that got to do with the type?
I don't know.
Everything
but
needs service and maintenance, doesn't it?
No, not at all. No, certain items don't need maintenance, certain do. It may be that all smoke control dampers need maintenance.
Yes.
I don't, but they may need maintenance. They may need different types of maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a, if you follow 9999, there's a whole set of details on maintenance for daily, weekly, monthly, etc. So yeah. Anyway, we digress. I'll have a look through that as well if you send me the document.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, scroll down a bit, Jez.
Has anybody else got anything to? So obviously we've got quite a few people on that have got expertise and.
Yeah, let's hear from.
As well as you, Ian.
This is where Richard drops somebody randomly into it.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that, would I, Antonio? Are you there?
Yeah. You must forgive me. I've been in this role for 3 weeks, so I'm as a learner more than an expert.
Oh no problem.
No problem. Jose.
I'd like to ask. I think that's Josephine actually. Josephine, are you there at the moment?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So
sorry, I've just asked Jose. Could you wait?
That's Josephine.
Oh, it's Josephine. I beg your pardon. Sorry. Oh, good job. Good job you did interrupt then.
Yeah, we could have been waiting for a while. Yeah, Josephine, as a doing safety case surveys and inspections and things, what could you look at it from that perspective? I'm sure you are, just to see if there's any information that you would need to know about a smoke damper.
So I've just come back onto the call because I was taking a call.
No, sorry to put you on the spot.
I don't know what the question is really.
Okay, so what we've got here, could you just scroll up a second, please, Jess? Okay, so what we're doing here, what we're trying to do is understand what information you, for example, as a safety case surveyor, would want to know about smoke control dampers. Apart from, as we say, where they are, what the model is, perhaps, who installed it, etc. But
yeah, so I'd like to know the history of how it's being serviced, and
yes,
if it's tested annually with cause and effects, and if it is, it's very important for how it's being maintained, and who is, putting, if, for example, if they're installing screws or parts, what type of parts they're installing, and are they compatible with the smoke damper?
yeah,
And just like fire doors, where they say the screws are very important, and you find a lot of contractors. Sorry, I was just in another call, it's distracting me. A lot of contractors come in with their own ideas and they say, well, I'm going to fix it this way. And whether it's being tested after it's been, worked on, maintained, who is taking close look, because that can affect the way it works in an effect of a real fire, really.
Yeah.
And whether there is.
Can we scroll down a little bit, because I think some of the maintenance bit is already been included. So you'll see. Just leave it there to read.
I think that what you're actually looking at is you're looking at history of fire inspections, maintenance, cleaning, non-compliances, fixing of non-compliances, and action taken to prevent recurrence. All the normal quality bits, but the issue is, this is again going forward. All this stuff may well be happening, but at the moment, it quite possibly isn't. So it's very difficult to get any of this information because people don't know they should have been doing it, and also it's the quality of the information of the people who have been doing it. So if somebody said, "Oh, we're a fire damper inspector and they've inspected smoke control dampers," you might as well throw that report away, because the smoke control dampers should be inspected in line with the smoke control system, not just the product.
Got it.
And if somebody shows you a fire damper inspection with 100 dampers on it and it's taken them 2 days to do it, it's probably not right.
Scott, you've got your hand up.
I was late to the meeting, apologies. I work with Paul McSoley. I'm no way an expert. I'm learning because I'm improving my knowledge in this field, so I don't have a lot to contribute, but I didn't see testing and commissioning on there. I don't know if that needs to be covered, but we did put in a smoke damper system, and I don't know if it answers the question, but I'd rather say it than have it dismissed than not say it at all. Is
Sure.
we had to make sure that the duct work was safely protected. So if it was really, really hot and people could touch it, it needs to be protected. I don't know if that comes into play. If it doesn't answer the question, ignore it. But I was just saying that's not covered on there. But that's not the damper. That's the system. So that may be.
Yeah, Scott, it is all part of the system, and mainly in smoke control systems, the ductwork should be protected. Okay. Because it comes down to, is it installed following the manufacturer's instructions in every instance, and and if it's the wrong duct or it's smoke control duct, it should be insulated. Otherwise, it is the wrong duct. That sort of thing.
Antonio.
Hi. Sorry. Like Scott, I'm also a learner, as I mentioned earlier. So, just in terms of smoke dampers, in terms of testing them or knowing what they're about, should we not include the sort of asset number which says this is smoke damper 1 of 100? Because let's say you go to check the smoke dampers and you only find 95. That means that 5 are either missing, you couldn't find them, or they weren't installed. So we need some way to say there should be X number of smoke dampers in this building according to the construction requirements.
Absolutely, and also their location. Yep. Most importantly.
Yep.
Absolutely. Which we should have down, just haven't we?
Because it's all fine and well testing and finding the ones you can find, but what are the ones that haven't been installed or are missing?
Absolutely, that's absolutely crucial. It's a very big point that George.
Yeah, that's always a question. The ones you can't find, or that that you don't even know are there.
Yeah, definitely. Should we scroll down a bit more? Is there any? We've got a section on maintenance as well, so we can come on to that. Any other comments? Richard, has your mic gone off?
My mic?
No. Yeah, it's gone off. You're very quiet. Okay, should we? Any other comments on that section there? We've got 3 more sections to do, so I think we need to move on.
Hear me now?
Yeah, you come back.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Okay, section 3 which is what tasks are required to ensure smoke control dampers are installed, commissioned, inspected and maintained properly. Okay, let's just scroll through quickly so we see what headings we've got.
In your second green paragraph.
Yeah.
Air conditioning units nothing to do with this.
Okay.
But what you could do is rewrite that to a smoke control system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just do an edit, replace, and put smoke control.
Yeah.
System. Sorry, smoke control system. Yeah.
Yeah. System and delete unit.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then qualified
Thanks.
qualified smoke control engineer. I'm not sure whether the engineer is the right thing, but anyway, that'll do for the moment.
Cool,
Yeah.
mate. Thank you.
Is there third-party accreditation, Paul?
Yes.
And how widely used is that?
Oh golly, Ian, I don't. It's if there's I think 30 SCA members and is it 10 non-SCA members of there's an IFCC SDI 19 scheme. Colin's popped his hand up.
Yeah, you're not far out, Paul, with that. I think it's about 45 specialist contractors now. I'm not sure there's a qualification for a smoke control engineer. So
no, there isn't. No,
we tend to say or recommend that it's installed by a specialist smoke control contractor, preferably with SDI 19.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Could you put that in the chat for me?
Okay, take me a little while to type.
No pressure, Colin. I'll do it.
No, all right.
Can someone scroll so I can see the question, please?
Yeah, scroll down. Oh, to see the question.
Yeah,
Scroll
to read
up,
the question.
Jess. There you go.
So that one where it says check base materials being constructed properly, I agree with for the first time, but you're not going to want to do that every single year going forward. I'm being very, very literal, you know, it's like once it's in and it's working and it's good, you wouldn't expect someone to come in and check
Well, the first point is to ensure they're installed,
yes,
commissioned, inspected and maintained. So just you want to scroll down so we can see the all the bullet points, or as many as you can get on. Anything that glaring there that we should have on? Colin, I've still got your hand up. Do you want to speak again? No.
No, I can't multitask. I'm trying to type. I
put something in there, Colin, if that's adequate.
You have you? Well done, that man. Okay, I won't bother. Specialist contractors is the point.
Right. Anything else you want? Any comments on what's on the screen right now?
Sorry, that's to go in the green stuff at the start.
That's to go at the top, Jess, instead of engineer.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
And remove qualified. But anyway, just check your sentence. Yeah. That's it.
Excellent. Okay, mate. Right, scroll down. Right, so we've got this extract from SFG 20.
So sorry, can I just make a comment on that?
Absolutely.
Should we not say competent? Because we're not saying qualified because there isn't a qualification. So should we not be saying competent at that in the green bit we were just putting in?
Well, that's why I used accredited, because I'm assuming that means they're third party, so therefore they should be competent, because the contractor's a company it's difficult to if you're accredited, they should be checking your competency. So I'm not anyway. I won't say any more than that.
Well, yeah,
putting
the word competent in there is quite important.
All right. Well, but
yeah,
change
change
accredited to accredited competent. Then just put
accredited and competent, or competent and accredited.
Yeah.
Well, if you just put competent, somebody can be competent to do something, but not
not there,
any
Jess.
proof.
Not there, Jess. In the second paragraph, accredited competent. That's it. You got it. No slash, because that makes it optional. We want both. We want both. Yeah, that's it.
Because you could be competent, but being accredited means you've got to go through more of a process.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it should be competent and accredited, I would have said, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to scroll down just now? We've got the FSG 20 example. Scroll past that. Unless anybody's.
Right, I definitely need to check that because I'm not absolutely certain about some of the content. So I will.
What
I need to
on
check
the SFG 20?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Could you look at that then for us?
Yeah.
Along with all the other stuff you're going to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe not today or tomorrow, but I will get it down at some point.
Oh, I was going to say by tea time.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
I think the point there is that I don't think SFG 20 has a specific one for smoke dampers. I think
and that's my issue, George. And I haven't actually been through the part for fire and smoke dampers either. And so I would reserve a bit of judgment on that. Just me being careful. That's all.
Yeah. The reason I'm suggesting it though, the reason I put that in there is because that is what 80% of the industry will be using as their means of maintaining any damper.
Yeah, but the point is that that's had no input from anybody outside of Better.
So maybe that should actually be in the appendix as information, as opposed to being in the main body of the text, which is recommendation.
Yeah. I mean, for a start, it says fire smoke dampers, and that's wrong, and it needs to be changed.
Is there an equivalent one that you could provide that is a set of maintenance instructions that are like this?
I can provide a shorter one because it's in EN 15650, and I think there's also some in one of the other Better things, but again, it still refers to fire and smoke dampers. So
yeah, if
all the documentation's leapfrogging itself, and some of the information is out of date. So I don't know whether the content of this is correct and up to date, or what's been maybe missed out of it, because some of these documents are written in a different way from a different perspective.
Yeah, and this is 2 years old, obviously, that this was put together. Colin, you've got your hand up.
I have indeed. You mustn't lose sight of the fact that the predominant requirement should be that the maintenance should be to the manufacturer's requirements. You have different materials with dampers. You've got galvanized sheet metal blades. You've got calcium silicate blades. So, you know, you can't just chuck an industry standard maintenance instruction. It's got to be, you know, the emphasis has got to be on the manufacturer's requirements.
Absolutely. Ian, briefly,
I think
because we've got a lot to do.
Yeah, we've got this learning point here that, again, people think that smoke control dampers are fire dampers, and they're not. And we've got to be very, very clear that smoke control dampers are not fire dampers, and they're not fire smoke dampers. They are a very different product.
We've split those down. All right, can we scroll down, Jess? Right, question 4, competency. What level of competency training needs to be in place? Scroll down a bit more now and let's see what we've got there. Oh, not too much, that's good.
One of the issues that you can get in the industry is you've got a competent person installing a damper, but they're installing it into a structure that is built by someone else. So as a smoke control system installer, you don't have direct control over what's been built. Now, obviously we would want to check that and verify that it was right, and we would issue drawings that it's done to that. But you do get this slight divide in that the person that's actually done it is the main contractor or a builder or some sort of plasterboard installer or something. So the question about that, there is a gap there that is a problem for the whole of the industry, I think.
Well, if you look at all the information from Paul McSoley and what we're doing in various areas, we're trying to overcome that because we're trying to make it very clear that the design includes the wall, because if it doesn't, you can't select, literally you can't select anything that goes through it. So you can't sort out penetration seals for duct pipes and cables. You can't sort out fire doors. You can't do anything. And we're working on that, but it's going to take a long time, Ian, as you probably be aware. But we are working on that. So we're looking at, once you've decided what the risk is in the space, then you need to decide which wall it is. And then when the wall's there, then everybody can go off and select the dampers. But that's the bit that needs to change.
Okay, but let's just focus on these questions now on the screen and have a look at those, flick through those, see if there's anything glaringly missing or needs changing.
I think the second one from the end might be a bit difficult, but
in what respect, Ian?
It was Paul, but I don't know how at the moment people are demonstrating their competence. They can demonstrate experience, but they can't demonstrate competence. And they can demonstrate training, but they can't necessarily. So I'd just be that anybody who's third party accredited, you would expect that from, but I don't know that anybody's doing it in that way at the moment, because it's very difficult, because there's no qualifications available.
This document isn't the status quo. It's not the state of play. This document is that this is what we should be striving towards.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, I understand that, but I'd just be careful for what you ask for by making a statement like that.
Should we say relevant experience then?
Well, I know, because they do. This is the problem, because they do need to demonstrate competence, but I'm not sure that just by holding an SDI 19 certificate means that that's the case.
Okay.
So just get rid of that one and just leave the next one.
You've gone quiet again, Richard.
Have I?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, delete that one.
He's saying delete the whole the whole sentence.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Can I comment on the second point and the last point? So,
please do.
I'm sorry, I don't know if everyone was on the call, but someone mentioned earlier about the building, but the person installing it, assessing the suitability of the base material, that's quite challenging, it seems to me.
Yeah, it's a bit late.
But no, but the person doing the install might not know anything about wall linings or floors they're going through. They've got a hole to either go through, or they've got nothing, that a hole or a wall has to be built around later.
Yeah.
And then the last point is it's saying should as opposed to must. So no disrespect to whoever wrote it, it sounds a bit woolly. So the second point is saying they must be competent, and then when you get down to the person doing it, it should be competent. So it's kind of saying, but well, if they're not,
yeah.
Can
you hear me now?
Yeah,
you can now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Scott,
yeah, I think
that was
that's a good
Scott,
point.
wasn't it? Scott, the issue is standard speak. So in British standards, should means must, and
right, okay.
in European standard speak, shall means must. I think we either need to stick to one or the other.
Yeah, I agree.
But we probably need to put a note at the start to say that should means must.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Europeans actually using the English language more correctly than we are. The should doesn't mean must. Shall does mean must.
Yeah, but the point is if you really want to get picky, it's I shall and we shall, and the other one is will. So you will and he will. So it doesn't work either. So
okay, so
you just need to define the fact that it's a meaning, but we can check that at the end.
So anybody not happy now with those on the screen? I'll take that as a no, and we'll move on to question 5. How are the changes from one product to another recorded? So it's change management. Now, we haven't got these split down. Sorry, George, what were you saying?
Yeah, I think one of the key things here is initially, and it's become very, very clear over the last sort of year or so, people are still not recording what's getting installed. In the BIM models that people are producing, they're not identifying a smoke damper, for example. They're placing, in many cases, a generic object, and it doesn't have to be a product, but they're not adding a proper category or a proper classification against something, and therefore what we're not doing adequately is recording where things are installed. So for the people that are on the call, I think that's something that would you agree that's important? Does anybody disagree it's important?
I mean, from the BIM point of view, it's absolutely critical that what's installed is recorded. And the issue is if you look through specifications, and I get a lot of specifications that I look through, and I see that they're using motorized fire smoke dampers in a basement, and they've got to be smoke control dampers. But it doesn't matter. They won't change the specification. And therefore, if they don't change the specification, they're highly unlikely to change the model. And because they still think they're right. This is the problem. They don't understand that it's an FD, an MFD, or an SCD. They still think that smoke control dampers, you need to have the word motorized. You don't, because they have to be motorized. And it's very difficult. So we're working hard as an industry to just have FD, MFD, and SCD, just to make sure that everybody knows it's the same thing. But in terms of as built, I don't even actually know with regard to basements who's in control of the design of the basement system and whether they even pull it all together so it exists as one document, because it gets let as separate contracts and stuff like that. So it can be quite difficult.
I just want to, before I go on to the hands up, I'd like to bring in Saren, who hasn't said anything yet, and we don't like that. Saren, are you there?
Saren?
No? Coffee break, eh?
Cool.
Okay, we'll return to the hand. So, Scott.
So my queries was when it's all about change, what point are we talking about change? Because my background, I'm an architect, but I'm a design manager and I work on projects at Heathrow. So we could have change during a design period, We could have change when the design is finalised, but then the installer can't purchase the product and has to do a change. And then you could have change when a product is installed and it's changed later, and they've probably all got implications. So I don't know if the question is specific to once it's installed or the other two scenarios.
No, it's all of those, Scott.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ian.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was picking up a similar point to Scott in that when we're talking about change, it might be that someone specified a product and you actually install a different product, and then you've got to make sure, obviously, that the product is fit for purpose, because the reason and the reason you've changed it. Because if you go back to sort of, you go back to Grenfell when cladding was changed and the reasons for it weren't there. And the same thing applies here, that if you've changed the product because it's a different specification, a different performance, or whether it's just because it's a different size or it won't fit or whatever. So yeah, and the as built is obviously fundamentally the most important thing, and that final as built thing is correct. So that's the information that we need to be collecting here on this sort of schedule and change.
Well, and potentially now on an HRB post Gateway 2, if you change something, you're going to have to send it back up to the building safety regulator to get them to approve it.
12 weeks.
And they're going to approve it in 12 weeks, which is a waiting period that people aren't going to want to stick with. So so it is. This part is very, very important.
That only comes down to getting your design sorted at an early stage, which sadly people rarely seem to do.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any change in that yet. So we'll see.
Well, we are starting to see that, Paul. We're starting to see main contractors refusing to go forward with projects because the design isn't adequately complete when they're being asked to take it on, which is...
If you're actually seeing that now, then that's great, because I've literally had one on my desk where the design information is so poor in this area, I wouldn't take the job.
Yeah, Balfour Beatty have told us that they've done that already on, I think it's 1 or 2 projects.
Okay, can we just scroll down, Jess? And
if anybody's interested in that particular topic, just put change into the chat, because I think what we're going to do is do something across the different asset types around how we can record change. So just put your name in and put change.
okay, so I think that's what we've got here is pretty comprehensive, actually. Is there anything anybody wants to add other than what they've said already? Okay, that's good. We're nearly out of time. So just to repeat what George has said about putting in the chat, if you're interested in getting involved in the change work, put change in the chat. If you're interested in getting into the information element, that's data, the actual data itself, the application of that data, or the process. Put one of those 3 or more into the chat, and we'll be moving on that as soon as we finish these roundtables in a couple of weeks.
So do people think this has been a useful exercise? Because obviously we've all given up, an hour and a half our time, for which we're very grateful. But like I've said at the beginning, we're all volunteers, so we obviously want to try and make sure that this is delivering some value for people.
Absolutely, it's not just about giving us something to write, I can assure you.
Good. Okay.
Excellent. Well, let's wind that up, and I'm sure we'll see many of you over the next couple of weeks, and see you Friday, Paul.
Cheerio.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Cheers.
thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. Thanks.